Well, I hope everyone is doing great on this wonderful Monday, and I have a slew of news that's rolling along in that I really want to talk about. We have two movies that are being made based off of cartoons from the 80s and or before that anybody over about the age of 30-ish will definitely know about, and there's casting on both of these films. There's also apparently a new movie coming out from the guy that did Tucker and Dale versus Evil, which is a cult classic horror film. This guy's been laying dormant for a while, and there's a new film coming out from him. And also, the last little bit I want to talk about is the box office and what is happening with this Gladiator 2 and Wicked box office weekend. So let's go ahead and dig into it. Now, as always, before we dig into things, let's make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below if you want to stay up to date on all the latest news in the entertainment industry, and also reviews for all the latest things that are coming out and some controversial older films as well. And then make sure to visit criticalist.com. We are an entertainment reviewing platform for reviewing and just talking about movies and things that you were watching and just making friends. Now, on to business. The first little bit of news here is that Idris Elba has actually been cast in the live-action Masters of the Universe film. Now, some of you might have not had any idea this was even being made. I have talked about it several times on this channel because the movie has been stuck in development hell pretty much forever, and so it's finally seems to be chugging along over at Amazon/MGM, and right when I saw this casting news, I was like, $100 says this is a race swap scenario for Idris, and he is going to be playing a specific character, being Man-at-Arms. And if you are a fan of the Masters of the Universe series, then you'll definitely be familiar with the character, and that is exactly who he's playing. It didn't really surprise me at all. That was definitely my first guess. But yeah, so the breakdown here is it says Golden Globe winner Idris Elba is now in final talks to join the live-action Masters of the Universe movie cast for Amazon's MGM Studios and Mattel family's highly anticipated action fantasy remake. Elba will be playing the role of Duncan, who in the original series is also known as Weapons Master Man-at-Arms. And basically they kind of break down what he's been doing lately, and the most important part of this as well is just all of the other people cast if you have not heard or know anything about this movie. Now, you know, as far as the race swap casting thing, that's kind of hit or miss for me, depending on what the property is. If it's significant, are they replacing a redhead? Which is pretty much always the case with Hollywood these days. But with the other cast members here, we've also had previously announced that there is a Nicholas Galinci who's actually going to be playing the character of He Man. And then we have Camila Mendez, who was from Riverdale, playing Tila. That's another technically race swapped character who was previously a redhead and is now, she's technically a Hispanic young woman. And then Allison Brie, who's playing Evelyn, who is a spot on casting for that character. And I've kind of pulled up some of these here. We've got Allison Brie here, which is next to Evelyn from, you know, this is more of a OG depiction of the original character there. And then, you know, knowing that I'm a fan of He Man, I've got the poster from the 80s classic back here, which really had very little to do with He Man, but is a fantastic 80s film nonetheless because it's ridiculous. But here's Man-at-Arms, the OG character as well, and he is a reddish-headed person too, so it would make sense with the casting for this character. And then we have the He Man casting, who he is not blonde. I guess, I mean, they'll probably have this dude wearing a wig. They might would dye his hair, but probably not. And this guy, I don't know. The jury's out. We'll see how he does. But like I said, I've talked about this several times on this channel before, and I'll hold out until all of the rest of the news comes down the pipe. Now, I will say that if you don't know anything about the director, which is Travis Knight, this guy actually is quite good, and I like some of the things he has done before, one of which was the Bumblebee movie, which I thought was pretty good. And actually he did Kubo and the Legend of the Six Strings or something strings, which was a stop motion film, which is really, really good. And I highly recommend checking that out. So he's done two movies. So I am a fan of him and what he has done, so I'll wait to see and not judge too hard. But honestly, as far as the casting goes with this, and Idris Elba, he's a good actor. I think he could play this role fairly well. And, you know, there are definitely going to be people that are bristled by a lot of the casting in this movie in general. I'm not going to put that on you, but what I will say is basically, if you know anything about Amazon right now, they are going through a heavy DEI situation over there as far as implementing things on what is happening at Amazon Studios. I kind of pulled up some of the bullet points from before, which is that, like, for example, each film or series with a creative team of 3 or more above the line roles, which is directors, writers, producers, should ideally include a minimum of 30% women and 30% members of unrepresented racial ethnic groups. Now, these are all requirements by Amazon if you want to make a film for them. So the thing is it's like a lot of these things, you can't exactly blame the director. It's like if they want to make a movie with them or a show, they're going to be tethered to all of these requirements. So actors' real life identities should align with those of their characters, which is an interesting one because that could also not work out in their favor as well. But at least one character should have a speaking role from each of the following categories: LGBT, persons with a disability, 3 regional unrepresented race, blah, blah, blah. So, and then also a minimum of 50% of them should be women. So, I mean, these are very strict and honestly complicated things that they are imposing on their creators. Also, it says seeking bids from women-owned businesses, and then pay equity across casting and crew suppliers. So that gets hairy as well. There is a lot of things here that is making production for films very difficult. And so it is making things hard for creators as well. Some of this could technically lead to maybe better decisions than you would have expected, but most of the time, quite often, it's going to lead to people who might not be best qualified for the role, whether it be in acting or in some other totally different position, which we've been seeing a lot within the industry. So, let me know in your comments down below what you think about this. I think Idris could play the character okay, but also I would have preferred somebody a little bit more traditional that fit the original role of the character, kind of like the guy who played it in the 80s movie. But we'll see how Idris does. I'm a big fan of The Dark Tower, and they did a similar situation with that movie, and he played Roland, and he was nothing like the character at all, and it just wasn't representative. So it's just hard to know when these things are going to work and when they aren't, but I think that Idris is a pretty solid actor, and we'll see when this movie comes out what it does, but I am a fan of the director, so I'll give it a chance at least. So moving on from there is that apparently there's a Voltron movie being made. Did you have any idea about that? Because I definitely did not know that this was happening, and honestly, so the news here is that this is also with Amazon MGM, and so the news is that Sterling K. Brown, Rita Ora, and John Kim are all on the cast. But the biggest piece of news for me, being that I didn't even know that this was being made, is that Henry Cavill's in this movie. Henry Cavill is doing a Voltron movie. I somehow missed this. I do not know when they announced it, but it definitely slipped by me, which happens from time to time. So the interesting thing here is this, and I'm really interested to hear everyone's thoughts, but it says that plot details are under wraps, however. Thurberger, who is the director, so this is Marshall Thurberger, or Rawson Marshall Thurberger. Now, this is going to be a bit of a problem as far as him being the director on this. I thought I had it pulled up, some of the things that he has been connected to. I'll do that in a moment. But basically what it says here is that he did a post sharing about this, and he said, I want to make sure that we stay true to the heart and the spirit of Voltron. In this film, we are going to be introducing an entirely new generation of pilots. So Voltron has pilots that pilot these robot characters. This was kind of like Transformers before Transformers, but animated. And so this is an interesting thing here that is probably going to bristle a lot of the fans, but it says, but we're going to stay true to those iconic elements that you love and that I love, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Now, as far as these actors, I mean, these are all decent enough actors. So the biggest thing for me is that Henry Cavill is on board, and typically Henry Cavill wants to stick to whatever the brand is and do it as close to possible, and he is just kind of a fanboy, and he tends to do things right when he is involved, and when they are not done right, he will leave the project. So this actually bodes well. He is the biggest and best piece of news about this entire movie, in all honesty, and he's the only reason I'm really excited about there being a Voltron movie being made with the rest of the news that is out there. Because with Rawson Marshall Thurberger, if you were to look at his film history, for a lot of you, you are going to instantly check out because the things that he has been connected to is Red Notice, Skyscraper, Central Intelligence. Now, We're the Millers was not a bad film, but some of these others that I listed out before that, not exactly my type of films. We'll just put it that way, and we're seeing a lot of The Rock. And if you know anything about me and The Rock, then you know that I have had more than enough of The Rock, and I don't want any more. So good news is, so far, he's not going to be in Voltron, which is great news. Now, the other interesting bit about this Voltron movie is kind of touching on what I've been giving a lot of things bad reviews for lately, which is the writing. And apparently, he has actually been the one writing the script as well, but he has this Ellen Shanman person attached to it as well, and she has done really not much of anything. So it's him and an unknown. So with that being the case, I really don't know how to judge how this is going to turn out. So he has written these other movies that he's done, so maybe it'll be okay. I just really don't know. I'm a little worried. This isn't normally his typical kind of movie, but we've got the Cavill attached, so maybe that's good news. So definitely let me know down in the comments below what you think about this casting news, all of these people that are going to be in it, because it is quite a few, and just what you think about this being an entirely new generation of pilots, a new take. This isn't going to be the OG stuff, and maybe that is the best approach, so that, you know, the fanboys and folks that are just have long been attached to loving Voltron can't say, oh, this wasn't like that character or that character and it's not quite the same. So maybe that's a better approach. I don't know. I was never a huge Voltron guy, so I'm leaning on you guys to kind of let me know what you think. Now, the other piece of news here is that we are having a film which is directed by Eli Craig, the guy that did Tucker and Dale versus Evil. He hasn't done anything in quite some time, and this movie is going to be a slasher called Clown in a Cornfield, which is apparently based off of a novel as well, which it was an award-winning horror novel apparently. And so what it says is it follows Quinn and her father, who have just moved to the quiet town of Kettle Springs, hoping for a fresh start. Instead, she discovers a fractured community that has fallen on hard times after the treasured Bipin corn syrup factory burned down. As the locals bicker amongst themselves and tensions boil over, a sinister, grinning figure emerges from the cornfields to cleanse the town of its burdens, one bloody victim at a time. Welcome to Kettle Springs. The real fun starts when Friendo the Clown comes to play. So as we know, clowns and them being murderous psychopaths are all the rage these days. So maybe this will be good. There's already a screenshot here from the film apparently with some of the girls that are going to be in it. If this is anything like Tucker and Dale versus Evil, then it is going to be awesome. Currently that movie has a 91% on Criticlist and people really like it. It's hilarious. If you have not seen it, highly recommend it. It's streaming quite a few places, but I'm definitely interested about this and pretty excited. I hope it's a good film. They've got the cast all listed out here. It's mostly unknowns from what I've seen. I mean, people that have done some other things. Actually, Kevin Durand might be the biggest, most name that I'm the most excited about. If you don't know him, he's the guy with the teeth. He's got lots of big smiley teeth, and he's actually an excellent actor. So I am excited that he's in this. He is probably playing the clown if I were to be a betting man, and that will be amazing and makes it even more so worth watching it. But I hope that this is funny and wacky and terrifying and bloody, and from the looks of it, it is probably going to be that. So I am excited about this one. Now, I did want to talk lastly about the box office. So with the box office, we have the numbers. They are in for Wicked and also for Gladiator 2. If you saw my review, I was not a huge fan. Definitely go check that out on this channel if you have not yet. I think that Rotten Tomatoes and all of these sites have lost their mind because the movie is not very good. And honestly, the box office is technically reflecting that domestically. So I pulled up an article here from Geeks and Gamers and OMB Reviews, and basically what he breaks down here in the article is that both movies actually did fairly well, and everyone is focusing on Wicked because Wicked actually did do quite well, but it's looking at the domestic versus the overseas, and that's when things get a little bit confusing. So technically broken down here, Wicked made 114 million for the new release this weekend, and then Gladiator only did 55.5 million. But Gladiator has also been overseas for 2 weeks, so for their box office numbers for the weekend, it technically included those previous numbers from the early opening overseas. So that number was actually technically higher for that movie, which I think Odin has broken down somewhere, and I should have highlighted it for myself, but basically, on paper, it looked like Gladiator 2 did better, but it actually didn't. And I think this speaks more to the overseas viewership and how they watch things. They tend to, especially when it comes to American films, lean more into things that are just very bombastic, large budget, big scale. Even if it's not the best thing ever, it will quite often do very well overseas. And then over here, struggle, which is what has happened with this movie. And I think that the numbers for Gladiator 2 are going to drop off drastically coming into the holiday weekend. I do not think it's going to do this well, because now if they continue to push things like Rotten Tomato scores and stuff and people who listen to that, it could do okay maybe, but all of the people that I know personally, no one is over the moon about this. No one thinks that it's great. At best, people are giving it like a 50-ish%. Now, if you take a look at Criticlist, we have the numbers for it's at a 48% from our audience right now, which is not great. And then my score was a 36, and there's not a lot of most excellence in here as far as the scores go. There's a few rads, and it's just doing very meh for the most part, which honestly I'm not super surprised about. Now, Wicked, which is not as much our user audience currently, but we did get 16 people to see it, and it's at a 76%. And so most of the people actually either have this in most excellent or rad, and it seems like people are fairly high on it. Now, I did want to bring up this one review here, which is a 0. It just says trash, and the only thing highlighted is the political bias. Now, I do want to point out, guys, make sure if you're on Criticlist, and I'm not saying that this person didn't see it. Maybe they did. But I'm just saying that from most of the people that would make a comment about it being politically biased haven't made that statement about this movie. It was more about the press around the film, not the film itself. So I guess all I'm getting at is if you're using Criticlist, make sure that you've seen the movie and we're not just dropping a review and being like, man, this is a piece of crap, 0%, don't watch it if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen something, don't review it. Let's not do that. We don't want to join that crew of people that do that sort of thing. And actually, with this score, if you were to remove it, this would actually currently be a most excellent. It'd be sitting at an 81.4% on the app, which is technically a most excellent. So this type of review is what we call a low effort shit missile around Criticlist. So you can go ahead and refer to those type of reviews if it's only like one word and then a bombed score or something of the like, or just no text at all and just something bombed, then that's a low effort shit missile. And that is exactly what this was. So we'll see as the reviews come in for more of these, and they will definitely over the holiday weekend, and same for this one. I do not think that the score is going to go up any. If anything, it will probably continue to go down. So that is the news for the box office and everything going on in the industry today. And I do not know if I'll be doing news tomorrow, but I definitely will Wednesday, try and get something out before the holidays. And I do not know if I'm reviewing anything this week. I'm going to try. I haven't even really looked at the calendar to see what's coming out yet. So we will see as far as the rest of the week goes and what we will be reviewing. But as always, make sure to visit criticalist.com, download us in the app stores, Android or Apple. Come drop some reviews for anything you've been watching lately, and then go ahead and hit that subscribe for our channel. I definitely want to continue to boost that. We're really close to monetization on the channel, which is pretty cool. So definitely keep following the channel, give us the likes, it helps us a whole bunch, and I will be back soon. Everybody take it easy. Later.